Hi everyone, this is one of your librarians, Miss Richardson. Today I'm going to be going over how to find credible websites while you are researching on the open web. When I say the open web, I'm referring to websites that you find by using a search engine like Google, so articles that you find outside of our databases. I want to start this lesson by saying that this is an important skill to have, not just for English class and not just for school, but for any time that you are using the internet to find information, which is probably a lot. Whether you are doing research for a school project or just scrolling through Twitter, it is so important to know how to be able to tell if something is a reliable source or not so much. We know that one of the dangers of finding information on the open web is that anyone can write and post whatever they want. And it isn't always obvious just from looking at something that it isn't good information. In order to determine if a website is credible or trustworthy and with good information, there is a series of questions that you should find the answers to. In order to help you remember what those questions are, we use the CRAAP method. CRAAP is an acronym that will help you figure out if a source is something you could use for research or if it's just crap. I'm going to be using a credibility checklist that goes through each letter of the CRAAP method to decide if I think a website is something that I would use for research. If you have a copy of the checklist, feel free to pull it up and follow along. If you don't have a copy but would like one, please feel free to send me an email and I will happily share it with you. Our first letter is C, current. So is there a date somewhere to show how recently it was written or edited? And you will usually find the date at the top by the article title. Once in a while, it will be towards the bottom of the page. If you are looking for historical content, the date won't necessarily be as important, but otherwise, if you're researching current events or current issues, you definitely want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information so that you're getting the most accurate info. Watch out if you notice that it keeps saying it was last updated on the day that you are looking at it, because some websites have an auto date generator. So it will always show you that day's date anytime someone clicks on it. That's something to be wary of. For R, we have relevant. So how relevant is all the other information on the page? Are there outside advertisements? Are there lots of pop-ups? Are there links that lead to other good information that's related to your topic? Or are the links just to other random things that can kind of clue you in to a website's purpose, which we will talk about later. But if there's lots of ads, their goal might be to sell you something. That's just something to think about. Our first A is author, and star this one because it may be the most important part of the CRAAP method. You want to find out who wrote this content, who is the author. Are they an expert on the topic, or do they seem to have a bias? Oftentimes, the author will be listed right under the article title, and most times it will have their name will be hyperlinked and it will take you to maybe a little bio information about them. So you want to look for things like their education, who they may be affiliated, what makes them credible. If they're writing about a certain topic, do they have their degree in that topic? Have they done research in that field? I do want to point out, if you are reading a lot of articles from news organizations, the author may not be an expert. They may be a journalist, and that's okay, but you just want to make sure that you are looking at where they are getting their information from. So are they interviewing an expert, or are they citing different studies or things that were written by experts? Don't just look at the author bio on the website that you're on, especially if you're on something like a blog, because that author is just going to show you the best parts of them or what they want you to know. It doesn't hurt to do a quick Google search sometimes if you're not sure about an author. See if you can find out a little bit more information about them. Our next A is accuracy. So how accurate is that information that they're showing you? Is the author citing their sources? Again, if they're not an expert, they should be citing their sources. And most of the time, experts will still cite their sources. So that's something you really want to look for. Can you find the same information on another source? I like to use the triangulate method, and that's what I recommend. So see if you can find those same pieces of information from at least 3 credible sources. Is any information missing? Sometimes if someone wants to sway you to think a certain way, they might use only information that's going to support whatever their argument is, and they'll leave out information that makes their argument look less credible. And so if you're finding on other websites, other credible websites, pieces of information that author left out, that may be a red flag that their goal is not necessarily to inform you, but to sway you. Look for grammar and spelling errors. That's a big one. I always feel like if someone didn't bother to proofread to get those simple errors, it makes me wonder if they bothered to fact check. So just something to be wary of. And our last letter in the CRAAP method, P for purpose. So can you find a mission statement on the website? A lot of times websites will have an about section, and I always recommend reading more about them to see what their purpose is. Why was that website created? Who owns it? Something to look at would be if they are sponsored by someone and who that is, who's paying for that website to exist, who maintains it, do they have some kind of affiliation that might be swaying you one way or the other? And then also look at the extension on the URL. So I know this is one that you have all probably heard several times, but I'm just going to go over it really quickly as a refresher. So .com, obviously this is one that we're pretty wary of. Com is short for commerce or commercial. So oftentimes the purpose is to sell or make money. Just be aware of that. .org is organization, so oftentimes libraries or museums. Usually you can find transparent information, but sometimes organizations do still contain bias depending on what the organization is. So be aware of that when you are researching. .gov, short for government. There's usually good statistical information and data on .gov websites. .edu, short for education. Again, this is usually going to be really good info. Something I have noticed though is once in a while a college paper that a student wrote may be on a university's website and it will have a .edu extension, but it's not necessarily going to be good information. You might not want to cite a college freshman's paper, but oftentimes .edu, if it is written by a student, they will have a sources cited page, so that's something to look at. You could see who they're citing. You may come across blogs. Obviously, we know blogs can be written by anyone, so you need to be careful and be aware of that when you're reading blogs. But sometimes there are experts in the field who have blogs. So an example of that is the Harvard Medical Sorry, guys, the Harvard Medical School blog. That's going to be written by people in the health field. And so even though it is a blog, those are going to be experts in the field, and that would be something that you could still look at. Quickly, I would like to talk a little bit about bias. So what is it? Most of you probably know that bias is when an author or organization is inclined towards a certain group or idea. Figuring out as much information as you can about the author or organization behind an article can help you determine if they are showing bias in the information they are presenting. So this goes hand in hand with that P of the CRAAP method, the purpose, as you are trying to figure out what the overall purpose of an article is. Is it to inform you, or is it to try and sway you? Sometimes it will be obvious if an author is biased one way or another. For example, if they are using negative generalizations about a group of people, like bleeding heart liberals or gun crazy Republicans, an article like that can be useful if you are trying to get a sense of how certain people feel about different issues. But be wary of using articles with obvious bias as a credible source of good information. A good chart to reference is this media bias chart, and I'm going to leave it up if you want to take a quick picture of this as something to reference. But this will tell you where different news sources fall in terms of reliability and bias. So if you read an article from one source that falls into a more left-leaning or right-leaning category, try to read articles from the other side and from a more neutral source to get a better understanding. Don't forget to ask yourself all the questions from the CRAAP method. The way that this chart works is we have our kind of left-leaning news sources, our right-leaning news sources, and ones that tend to be a little more in the middle. So that will show you along the bottom. And then on the sides, we have how they're rated in terms of reliability. So ones at the top are going to be a little more reliable than ones at the bottom that are not reliable at all. And there's also a color reference. So these ones in green, most reliable, yellow is mixed reliability, orange to the side, somewhat unreliable, and then red is just totally unreliable. So this could be something good to use. Now that we know what we're looking for specifically when finding articles on the open web, I want to look at a few examples. So these are some articles that I found just by Google searching video games and anxiety, because I want to know a little bit more about that. So the first article that I have here, using my CRAAP method, I'm going to look for currency. So when was this written? And I can see here it was written originally in January of 2018 and updated in July of this year. So that is very current information. For relevancy, are there outside advertisements on the page? There are a lot of ads all over the place. So I don't love that, but I'm not going to automatically dismiss this article just because of the ads. For author, who wrote this? I can see here it was written by this person and there is a hyperlink on their name. So I'm going to open that in a new tab and read a little bit more. And it looks like they're a technology correspondent covering many of the world's most powerful companies. She writes news, features, and regularly reviews newest smartphones. So she is not an expert. I would not say she's an expert on depression and anxiety, but she is a journalist. And so we're going to read a little bit further to see if she is interviewing or referencing some studies. So that's where accuracy comes into play. Is she citing sources? Can I find the same information on another source? Does any information seem to be missing? How does the grammar and spelling look? As I was reading through here, the grammar and spelling seem to be pretty good. As I'm researching more, I will find out if this information is the same in other places. And for her citing her sources, I see here she's talking about a report published in the Journal of Health Psychology. I'm not 100% sure what that source is, so I'm going to open that in a new tab and take a look at it in just a minute. Again, skimming through here, she's referencing the World Health Organization. So it seems like she is looking at other experts in the field and other studies. So I feel pretty good about that. Let's double check though what this study is that she referenced, Journal of Health Psychology. This looks to me like it is from an academic journal, but I'm going to click on this just to double check. And it says Journal of Health Psychology is a leading international peer-reviewed journal. So what that means are peers or experts in the health psychology field are reviewing this. They're saying it's good information. So I like that she is citing this. And it looks like I don't have access to read this entire article, but if you come across something like this, please reach out to Mrs. Draghi or I, your librarians, because we might be able to help you find a free copy of this through our own school databases. So if that's something you run into. Okay, and for the purpose of this website, I want to find out more about this inews.co.uk because I am not super familiar with this publication. A lot of times there will be an about section towards the top. I'm not seeing one here. So oftentimes what you can do is scroll to the very bottom and there will be an about section in the fine print, which I'll show you on another website in a minute. I found that this website has the infinity scroll on it. So the longer that I scroll, the more it just keeps showing me links to other articles. So what I did instead was I took their website and I copied that into another browser and then put /about, and it took me to their about section. So that's a cheat you can do. And it tells me that their essential daily briefing covering everything I need to know about the things that matter, most trusted news brand, proudly independent, have no agenda when it comes to political disputes. So they seem to be a decent, I guess, news source. But overall, based on the rest of our CRAAP test, as we're looking at who the author is, the currency, where she's getting her information from, I would feel okay using this for research. Okay, next up, we have the association between video gaming and psychological functioning. And going through my CRAAP test, I want to look for currency. So my date looks like July 2019, so that is current. Are there outside advertisements? Nope, just links to other information. And it does seem to be in articles that are along with my same topic, so that is good. Who is my author? It looks like there are several listed here. And when I hover over them, it tells me that this person works in the Department of Psychology at a university. Again, this person, Department of Psychosomatic Medicine, Department of Psychosomatic Medicine. So these are all people who are going to be experts in their field. If I wanted to find out more information about them, again, I could do a quick Google search for them, make sure they are who they really say they are. But when I'm looking at where this comes from, National Library of Medicine and National Institute of Health, those are .gov sources. And so most likely these people aren't lying about their credentials on a .gov website. Accuracy, are they citing their sources? Can I find the same information from another source? This seems to be backing up a lot of what I was reading in the other article. They are also conducting their own study in this article, so they get really in depth with who their participants were, what their procedure was, lots and lots and lots of information in here. And when I scrolled towards the bottom of this article, I did find this huge list of references. So other studies that they're referencing, other papers and articles that they're looking at. And this would maybe be a good place to look at for more websites to go to if you were struggling to find enough sources about this topic. But overall, this is going to be a really good source that you could use. Okay, and then this is the last one I'm going to take a look at. Let's do our CRAAP test. So date. I don't see a date at the top, but when I scroll down to the bottom of the article, it tells me it was last updated April 2019, so I would say that is current. Are there outside advertisements on the page? Not really. I see links to other articles that they wrote, but it looks like they're not necessarily related to the same topic, so that's fine. Who is the author? So I see here we have Tanya Peterson. I'm going to open that link in a new tab and read more. So this kind of confused me when I very first was trying to figure out more about her, because it says we have Tanya Peterson and then her information seems to be written by another person named Natasha Tracy. So that was kind of confusing to me. But as I was reading through here, I noticed that it said Tanya Peterson has a Master of Science degree in counseling and it's a nationally certified counselor. But something I didn't like about this is that I noticed some clear grammatical errors here. Like there's no period or a space between these words, and I think there were a few others. So that makes me a little wary. I did a quick Google search for Tanya Peterson, and I found that she is who this bio says she is. She's a nationally certified counselor in mental health care. So she probably has some authority to be writing about this topic, but I want to keep digging a little bit more. Accuracy, does the author cite their sources? As I'm reading through here, it looks like she does reference an article from this Dr. Brent Conrad, who's a clinical psychologist who writes for tech addiction. So he sounds like he would be someone trustworthy in that field. And again, she seems to link to several different things throughout, so I would just double check on those. I noticed at the bottom there's this link to article references. So I clicked on that and I found all these different articles that are coming from different publications. And I would really be interested in reading through these, especially again, if I was doing some in-depth research on this topic. This would probably be really helpful to me to go through some of these a little bit more and see if I can find some good credible sources from this list as well. And so lastly, purpose. We want to find out what this website is because it's a .com healthy place. I'm not really sure, so I just need to do some more digging. I noticed at the top there is an about, and when I hovered over that, it says about us. So I clicked on that to read more. It says they're the largest consumer mental health site on the net. They provide authoritative information and support people with mental health concerns. I thought it was interesting, this note in this box here. The information presented on the healthyplace.com website is produced by writers employed by healthyplace.com. They are journalists who specialize in writing health articles and content, but they are not doctors, therapists, or medical professionals. So that is definitely going to be something to keep in mind. Again, with this website, kind of like the first one, I didn't think it was a bad website, but I don't know that I would really want to use this in a paper. What I would probably want to do instead is look through some of these articles that the author referenced to. And what I really want you to take away from this, just as an example, the article that this person wrote, it probably is a little bit easier to read. As I was reading through here, it seemed like she was using terms that regular people would understand, compared to an article like this that is written by experts in their field. So they are writing this for other experts to read and understand. So the language that they use is probably going to be a little more jargon heavy, maybe bigger words that people in that field are going to be more familiar with. And so, even though this is going to give you really good information, it might not be the easiest article for you to read through. So, in that case, reading something like this that isn't necessarily a bad article by any means, they're referencing other articles that seem to be credible as well, but this might be easier for you to understand. And give you a better idea of what this topic is about, or what is being said about this topic in ways that is a little bit easier for you to understand. So ultimately, what I want you to take away from this lesson is that you should always dig deeper into articles and make sure you are aware of things that could potentially be influencing you, and that there really isn't such a thing as a good or a bad article, but there are articles that are going to be better to use for researching and gathering facts, and articles that might be written to serve a different purpose. So be aware of those biases. Make sure that you can find out more information about the author and publication or website. Lastly, you should know that you can always, always, always ask a librarian. So, Mrs. Draghi or me, or you can ask your teacher. Researching and finding good information isn't always easy. As you can see, as I was walking through this, I even had a couple of things that I had to look deeper at or maybe think about a little bit more. But it is a skill that gets easier over time as you start to know and just remember what to look for, or as you become more familiar with publications that are going to be credible, that you know that you can trust. But if you aren't sure if an article is credible, don't hesitate to ask one of us. The more you practice at it, the better you're going to be. So thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.